Okay, so we're live. Good morning, Master Andrea or Andrea. Okay,
Good day to
magandang
you. Hi.
umaga. Magandang umaga in Melbourne.
Mabuhay.
Mabuhay. Okay, so good evening, everybody. This is Guru Tom Pena for FMA discussion episode 222. Okay, and tonight we've got our esteemed guest, Master Andrea Wheatley from Kakouis Doce Pares, based in Melbourne, Australia.
Hi, everyone.
Uh,
Thank you so much for having me, Guru Tom. It's an
and it
absolute
is our
honor to be
pleasure and
here.
honor. It's a pleasure and
Thank
honor.
you.
Yeah. Okay, so guys, if you're watching this live interview, please click the like button or the heart button, and tell us where you're watching from. Say hi. If you got any question from Master Andrea, don't hesitate to put it in the comment box. And also remember, after this interview, Dean Franco is going to put it in YouTube, so you can also watch it in YouTube. Just in case you missed this, if you're not a member yet, or if you haven't subscribed yet in our YouTube channel, please do so. Okay, so without further ado, um, Master Andrea, how did you start your martial arts journey?
So actually, I was thinking about this earlier today. So I guess formally, I started when I was in high school. One of the subjects I chose was self-defense. So we
Okay.
had an unarmed combat program. But actually, realistically, I guess I started a lot younger than that. Just I always wanted to do karate, and I loved boxing, and I was sort of self-taught boxing at the age of 8, and I was really bad at it, of course. But I bought a bag, and I remember my parents were like, "Yeah, we'll get you some gloves," and so I was really an athletic, really high energy child. And yeah, and I guess also like when I look back, that growing up in the time that I was growing up, sometimes conflicts amongst children were sorted out quite quickly with fights, which sounds terrible. I don't know, in this day and age that would be judged quite harshly. But I think in terms of standing up to bullies, I was quite a small child, and yeah, so it was also learning conflict resolution at
Mm.
a younger age, and looking after my sister or my friends when there was bullying around. So I was kind of already doing that from a fairly young age, and then that training was formalized. Yeah, when I got to, I think I would have been about 14 when we had this fabulous teacher coming to my high school and just learned basic unarmed
Okay.
combat. It was great. Yeah.
Ah. So, did you get into fights when you were young?
This is a terrible thing to talk about, especially now. Like, I'm an osteopath, and I treat children, and I've got a fantastic clinic. But yeah, that sort of thing did happen at my primary school, and yeah, it was sort of like learning it for real, right?
Mm.
Um, and sorting out bullies very quickly. I can remember, being quite young, and the children who were less popular at school knew that they could approach me if they were being bullied, and I could get their ball back, that sort of thing. I was small. I was a really small kid. But I kind of worked out early on how to put a full stop to that kind of behavior. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
That's the very honest answer. But my formal training started a bit older.
uh, I think that honest answer is somehow paved way to everything that happened when you were when you were an adult, and especially when you're taking all the other martial arts that you have been taking, and of
Yeah,
course,
yeah,
not to mention, you have been like in full contact competitions, or yeah, championships,
yeah,
which we're going to talk
yeah,
about later. So
sure.
yeah, okay. So did anybody inspire you to take up martial arts? It's just because of um, like the bullying situation in school.
Um, you know, this is a really funny answer I have because I know it's often laughed at, but I watched The Karate Kid when I was about 7. And I watched no, really, and I watched
Me
Bruce
too.
Lee. I used to watch. That's so funny, and I used to watch all the Bruce Lee movies. I've got
Yeah,
now got them all on
I,
DVD. Not
I
that
think
anyone watches
everybody
DVD
did.
anymore. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I was really inspired, the choreography, but also the speed and the athleticism and the way that it was effective, the street effectiveness. Particularly Bruce Lee. I got his autobiography quite early on, and
Alright.
so I was really, as I said, I was athletic and I was energetic, and I wanted to do karate when I was 7, but my mum wasn't so keen. My parents were more into motorsport,
Mhm.
which I also got heavily involved in when I was quite young. But I wanted to do martial arts, and yeah, so I would have to say the movies. I
All right.
really enjoyed. I used to watch Jean-Claude Van Damme when I was a kid. I used to watch when I was a bit older. Yeah, just all those kinds of
Yeah.
films really inspired me. I was like, I want to be like that.
Okay. So how about like Cynthia Rothrock or was it Karen Shepard? They were like the female. Uh,
Yeah, I think I liked Sarah Connor from Terminator.
all
It was sort of
right.
that attitude of like overcoming adversity, that attitude that you could fight and you could get out of a situation, you could be strong.
Okay.
Um, yeah, there certainly are several female role models, I think, particularly now. But I guess
Oh,
back
yeah,
then
there's
there
a
was
lot.
more male
For
role
men,
models.
yeah, there were
Like
only quite a
for me,
yeah,
yeah,
maybe two or
there
three
weren't.
women.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there weren't many. Yeah,
Mm,
and definitely the men always had the glory, so they were the
yeah.
ones I was looking up to.
Yeah. Yep. Well. Yeah, those were the days. Okay,
So
so
funny.
uh, which came first? Did you, when it comes to studying martial arts, did you
Mm.
study FMA first, or did you dabble with formally with other arts first?
Yeah, so I dabbled formally with other martial arts before FMA, definitely. As I said, I started with basic self-defense and unarmed combat,
Yeah.
which then went into some knife defense with a fantastic instructor who worked in Melbourne, Australia at the time, which is where I grew up. And then I kind of moved into Taekwondo, and
Okay.
yeah, and then I was back in Adelaide, Australia, and I was working as an osteopath there. And so this was now sort of in my 20s. I started training in boxing. Grandmaster Vince Palumbo runs an international academy of martial arts in Adelaide. So he was my first instructor for Arnis.
Mm-hmm.
And I was studying some kickboxing and boxing,
Wow.
and then I discovered Filipino martial arts, and I actually met Menon Kakouis quite early on in my time there, so about 2003, through some seminars. And I signed up for the Pungamot seminar and loved it.
Mm-hmm.
That was with Menon Kakouis. Had a fantastic experience, and I wanted to do the Eskrima seminar. That would have been early 2004. But I actually sustained a concussion in
Oh.
the Pungamot. We were doing some ground techniques, and there was a big guy, probably 100 kilos, and myself, and we were doing ground techniques, and we were with different partners, and we were flipped off at the same time, and we headbutted each other. And
Oh. Okay.
so I ended up just watching the Eskrima seminar with Menon Kakouis back then, my very first experience, and I was so inspired just watching him throw Grandmaster Vince onto the ground and watching the others, like
Mm.
Master Teresa Cronin was at that seminar. I've still got the DVD. So yeah, I just watched them all performing, and I was like, I need to do this. I need to learn this.
Okay.
So that was my
Wow.
exposure. And then I sort of got heavily involved with it. As soon as I had 2 sticks in my hands, it just felt right. It felt amazing. Like, I was like,
It's not
I'm
natural.
ambidextrous. Yeah, like, I don't know, like I'm ambidextrous, and it was like, this is what I need to do. This is my thing. It was
Mm-hmm.
just, it felt amazing. Yeah.
Okay. So when you were taking up like taekwondo, boxing, were you already drawn into like competition or a
Um,
lot of sparring?
yeah. So I was interested. I would say in that early stage, I didn't have a lot of skill.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I entered my first taekwondo tournament back in '99, and I was training really hard. I was doing a lot of cycling, and um, I actually came off my bicycle coming home from work
Oh.
and broke my elbow. and my wrist.
Oh no.
So
Okay.
so I missed my first taekwondo tournament because of a fractured elbow, fractured wrist from a biking accident. But I was still interested. I'd competed in athletics as a child. I'd competed
Oh, I see. Okay. So you're quite
motor carnage.
competitive,
Yeah, I was already
even as a child.
competitive. I was,
All right.
I was athletics at school, cross country at school, and racing cars like MGs. So yeah, I already had that competitive spirit, and I really wanted to compete in martial arts, but it was more I needed to build a foundation of skill. And I
Okay.
really feel like that was given to me in Adelaide at that first academy that I trained at. It was a
All
really
right.
good foundational place for fight training.
Okay. So I would guess that you basically like develop your fitness, your attributes, and together with your skill as well to be able to get you into that fighting
Yeah,
condition.
definitely. So again, yeah, training, it would be back in sort of 2004. I was training, learning full contact stick fighting, loved it. It was at that academy in Adelaide with Grandmaster Vince, and I learnt a lot from the other students. And I actually had my first trip to Los Angeles in June 2005. Menon Kakouis was there. It was the World Championships, and that was my first ever world tournament. It was
Ah,
so much fun. I lost to the eventual world title winner that year by 1 point. It was a split point decision.
wow. That was
I don't
close.
think I had a lot. It was really close, but I don't think I had a lot of skill back then. I think I had speed, I had
Okay.
reaction time, but I
All right.
would say in 2005 I was still developing. I was still learning. It was the
Hmm.
beginning of my competition time.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
yeah, but it was
that's
great. It was a
interesting.
great experience. It was like jumping in the deep end. Let's go to Los Angeles and give it a go. I
Yeah.
didn't go there. Never went into a fight with the goal of winning. I just
Mhm.
wanted to express myself and learn.
Sometimes
And
it's the
and I
best
think
way to
that's
do it.
yeah, I just think that's the gift of the opponent, right?
Hmm.
Like they're going to bring the best out of you. And if you lose, you are supposed to lose because you've got so much more growing and learning to do.
Yeah.
And I just always went into competitions with that attitude. It's how I thrive. I
Hmm.
thrive on that.
Yeah. Oh,
Mm.
brilliant. Okay, before we move on to the next three questions,
Sure.
let's say hi to Paul, to Dean, to Alvin, um,
Hi guys. I can't make out this camera. Hang on.
Guru Chad Bailey,
There's my
and he said, I
yeah.
got all my training with Senior Grandmaster Kakouis.
Yeah, that's lovely. I can see that there. There's a few questions as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. Alvin asked,
Hi from San Francisco.
did you have many female training partners when you were coming up to the ranks?
No, so the honest answer to that is no. I had pretty much, I would say, all male training partners. Early on, 2005, there was some females in the club that I was at in Adelaide, but no,
Hmm.
male. And that was a gift. That was an absolute gift that the instructor in Adelaide originally only put females with females and males with males.
Hmm.
And I don't see gender. I know that's unusual. I
Yeah.
see people. I don't see gender. I never have. And I
That's
realize that
nice. Yeah. Hmm.
it's good. It's the way I am, but
Yeah.
perhaps that caused issues as well because people clearly see my gender.
Hmm.
But the teacher in Adelaide he opened up to allow us to fight males, women to
Oh,
fight
that's good.
men, and it was fantastic. So that pushed my level, like
Mm.
that. I remember rocking up to a tournament in Wollongong, Australia, in 2006, and all the females had pulled out of my division, and I had to fight
Oh.
men, and and that was a gift. That
Mm.
was like again, I went in with like I have no idea what's about to happen. I don't care if I lose. I want to fight. I
Hmm.
actually won. I won. I think I got 1 gold, 1 silver in that comp, and it was like a surprise. That was an education, and
Hmm.
again, no expectation. And so yeah, I guess sorry, Elvin, to answer your question, there really weren't that many females then. And I think one of the beautiful things that's happening right now is my club in Melbourne has finally got several female students, and they're
Okay.
fantastic. Their skill level is increasing all the time. But I have been training. As a teacher, I've been training men in Spain about 11 years ago, and in Melbourne for the last 10 years. I've been training men, but finally there are women coming into the club and girls, and
Mm.
it's great. it's so good to see.
Okay. Maybe I'm gonna have a follow-up question on that one. So,
Of course.
when you basically like teach male and female, do you treat them the
Yeah.
same way, or
Yeah.
do you have a slight modification
No, so
with the
again,
two? Is it the same?
yeah, so again, I don't see gender, I see people. I train them the same, but it's more about individual ability rather
Yeah.
than
Okay.
gender. So if I see that someone
Fair enough.
has
Yes.
courage, they're not
Mm.
afraid, they're willing to push limits, I'll push them harder. If
Mm.
I see that someone's fearful or perhaps timid or lacking in confidence, I'll teach them accordingly. And that could be a female or a male. So
Mhm.
for me, it's not about gender. It's about people and their
Yeah.
ability and where
Yeah.
they're at with their comfort
Yeah.
level. You
Their
know, some
attributes,
people
their
come in and
mindset. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah,
Brilliant. Yep.
yeah. Certainly,
Nice.
yeah. I guess this is a question for later on, but the way I teach my fighters versus the way I teach my students in class, that's different. But
Mhm.
I think that's a question you had for later. So,
No, we can do it now. That's
okay,
fine. We can do it now. Yes. We're
okay.
in that subject anyway.
Well, yeah. So, okay. So, class, we have a lot of white belts. We have a few brown belts at different levels. We have one black belt who's a fellow instructor. And again, the class is aimed at the level of ability, and the goal is to make everybody rise together. You know, so they work together. They help each other improve. The fighters is a different thing. So I took four. Sorry, took four of my male students to the Philippines in 2019. That was our last World Championship before the pandemic hit.
Okay.
And, you know, those guys I push hard. I push them really hard because if they want to step into that ring and they want to fight full contact, they need to be fit. They need mental toughness. They need determination. And I can't
Yeah.
have somebody wanting to pull out because they have an injury, depending on the injury, within reason. But if it's, if it's a bruise, you've got to keep
Yeah.
fighting. So, something like that. So those guys, we have a different training regime and a very different approach to training. It's very direct, you know, and the language is different. It's
Of course.
it's effective language.
Of
You know,
course.
when it's a fight and it's a 60-second round and you've got 30 seconds rest in between rounds to deal with a situation, like in
Yeah,
Jakarta
it's
2000,
different.
we had a broken helmet. Yeah, we had a broken helmet on a key Australian player, and we had a 16-year-old boy cornering him. The language you use under pressure has to be
Has to
effective.
be
It has to
different.
get the job
Yes.
done.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's not with
Exactly.
flowers and honey. It's just
Oh
like,
yeah, of
let's
course.
deal with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. It's almost like when you're coaching, when you're basically training fighters, it's where the whip starts coming out.
It has to. It has to, or else you can't get the job done. And that's what
Exactly.
it's about, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
We've got a comment from Chris Chu here. I love the idea of martial arts not caring about color, creed, or gender, which is how it should be.
Yeah.
I would
And isn't
say.
that how the world should be, right?
Exactly.
And
That's how it should
and
be.
I'd have to, I love it. And I have to say that, so I also trained Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu under the Gracie Academy in Barcelona, Spain, where I lived for 3 years. And I have to say that it's on the mat that you meet everyone. You meet, police officers, you meet criminals, you meet as you've written here, Chris, which I love, color, creed, or gender. You meet everybody on the mats and everyone works together. Everyone's, they're compatible and it's cooperative, it's collaborative. Even in competition, you can fight someone at the end, you give them a hug. It's like, thank you for that experience. Thank you for the
Exactly.
opportunity
Yeah.
for bringing out the best in me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I love that about martial arts.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the same thing when you practice with somebody. That's the
Yeah.
reason why we bow to each other at the end or beginning at the end of the practice. So the same thing with
Yes.
competitions. It's only when you go to competitions or sparring that you get to learn more about yourself and basically
Yeah.
your weaknesses and your strengths. So
100%. Some people, I guess every school operates differently, and I have no judgment for how different schools operate. For me, I was brought up in martial arts with tradition. So I love the bowing because the bowing is, as you said,
Exactly.
Guru Tom, it's thank you for giving me this opportunity to learn and to express myself, and it's
Yeah.
gratitude and it's
Yes.
it's honor and it's it's beautiful, you know. It's how I teach my students, and
Mm.
yeah, it keeps us humble. We're all on a journey, you know.
Exactly.
None of us have
Exactly.
arrived.
Exactly.
Mm. There
Exactly.
is no arrival.
Yeah, and we always need each other in this journey.
Yeah,
Yeah. So,
100%.
wow,
Mm.
brilliant. Okay, so when you were basically still competing before, how did you prepare yourself for competition? So, like for example, let's say your basic, like your cardio. Did you do like weight training? What kind of training
Mm.
program did you do apart from like your sparring sessions?
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, the answer to this question is pre-leg paralysis and
Mhm.
post-leg paralysis, and then how I train my students. So I'm a bit complete in my answers, aren't I? So I'm not very linear. So anyone listening to this interview is going to find that I go all the way around and get to the answer. I have to apologize for that right now. So, okay, pre-leg paralysis, which we're talking before 2011, all my training was a lot of running for fitness.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
baseline cardio, I do between 5 and 12 kilometers 3 times a week. One of the beautiful things about living in Europe and studying in Switzerland, because that was for my career, I was running the Swiss Alps before the tournament in
Okay.
2009 in the Philippines. So that was beautiful. So running, basic weights. So leading up to a competition, I keep the weights low, more
Mhm.
like kettlebells and explosive work, dead ball slams, you know, but basic push pull press concept. Rather, I
Mm.
don't do individual muscle groups. I'm not interested in aesthetics whatsoever. I'm interested in function and
Functional.
performance.
Yeah. Yeah.
100% biomechanics and the best fighting performance.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
my training involves explosive HIIT workouts, which is high intensity interval training, little bit of slow continuous cardio, just because I think we need the endurance,
Mhm.
and a bit of swimming for recovery,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
lots of stick fighting, multiple rounds.
Yeah.
So then after the leg paralysis, I just had to take the running out for myself. So I use swimming and exercise bike, a stationary bike, which I could achieve the same result. So yeah.
Yeah. So you managed at least to keep your training in a cycle. So you've got your pre-competition, in competition, or pre-fight, and then also the
Yeah.
post-competition cycle of for your recovery.
Yeah. Definitely. And now I use a lot of heavy weights. So I don't do heavy weights before competitions. It slows you down and you don't want bulk,
Mm-hmm.
um, which the male fighters I train bulk up very quickly. Females tend not to, but it's still heavy weights tend to slow us down. But in between, I love heavy weights, you know, bone density, power,
Yeah.
neurological connection.
Mm.
It's awesome.
Yeah. It's actually good to train with heavy weights at one point because that's gonna
Yeah.
give you the base for your strength,
Yeah,
and
definitely. Yeah, yeah,
especially
yeah.
you won't be able to have power without that strength. Actually, it's
Exactly. Strength times speed is power, right? That's basic.
it's
You
gonna
know
lead,
this, right?
yeah, it's gonna lead you
In
to
your job.
injury if you basically want to go for power without developing strength first. You're gonna have injury. That's
Exactly.
a recipe for injury.
Yeah. This is a great, you know, it's great to have you, Guru Tom, because you've got the exercise physiology background as well. And yeah, absolutely. Strength times speed is power. If you want to explode with multiple strikes to
Yeah,
multiple areas of the body with your
yeah.
stick, you know,
Hmm.
or empty hand, you need power. So
You need to.
you've got to
You need
develop
to.
strength.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and also like for example, have you experienced this one when you there because you've got some people who don't have the right muscle fibers or the fast twitch and the slow twitch muscle
Yeah.
fiber.
Yeah, sure.
So
Yeah.
you need to develop them a little bit longer, especially if
Yeah.
their slow twitch is dominant than the fast twitch.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You know, like um, there can be a higher percentage of type 1 versus type
Yeah,
2 slow twitch, fast twitch fibers. So yeah, we sort of look at each person's strength and we work
that
on
is
their
really
weakness
important.
and
Yes,
try to
that is really
balance it
important.
out.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
And that's really important in coaching. That's why you have to like approach everybody individually,
Yeah,
especially when you
absolutely.
coach. Yeah.
Very true. Mm.
Okay. So yeah, we got more people watching. We got
Yeah, I'm
Mark
just saying
Aliado
hello.
from, yeah,
Hi,
Kyle
guys.
as well, and Eric and Terry from Stockton.
Yeah.
Okay. So would you w- could you kindly share to us your greatest moment when you were still doing competition?
Yeah, sure. So, and that doesn't rule out that I may not do another competition. That
No, no,
question.
no, no, no.
No,
Doesn't,
but at this
doesn't, doesn't,
stage,
doesn't, doesn't, doesn't.
just kidding. So yeah, look, my greatest moment, I had to think about this, would have to be, I would say 2014. So my first tournament, international tournament, was Los Angeles 2005. We had the Philippines 2006, Jakarta 2007, Philippines 2009, and it was 2011 that I became extremely ill. And I ended up with a paralyzed leg, which I know we're going to go
Mhm.
into later. It took me 3 years to walk again. So that was daily rehab and 36 hours of rehab. 36 months and 2 hours of rehab a day. Yeah. So my greatest moment was actually the victory over my own body.
Mhm.
Rather than, so eskrima, full contact sports eskrima is my passion. In the photograph, you know, that is my passion. And so going to the World Championships in 2014, even though I'd won 6 world titles before that, going to that particular competition and winning the gold was, to me, not about winning gold. It was about being able to do the thing that I
Mhm.
love unencumbered, because my body allowed me to. I could express myself in the ring again. That's my dance. That's my art. So that moment, that was probably the sweetest victory. And having said that, that's like climbing to the top of a mountain, right? Learning to walk again. I used fighting. I used brain patterns, previous powerful brain patterns, or it's a form of stroke rehab, actually, to regain that ability. I used
Yeah.
fighting to get that ability to walk back, which I know we're going to go into shortly. But
Mhm.
being on the podium for that win, that tasted different to all the others. It didn't last long because I relapsed. I was in hospital again shortly after. But just in that moment, that was my greatest moment. So
Mm.
yeah, thanks for asking.
Okay. Well, because you already alluded to that, you might. Okay. So, would it be okay for you to share to our viewers basically the illness that you went through, the one that you were describing?
Yeah, so I had 3 episodes over a period of 6 years of an extremely debilitating, serious illness. So it was 2011, 2014, 15, and again in 2017. And so in between these illnesses, I was, relearning to walk. I was really growing my body back. It was a serious autoimmune disease that destroyed my muscles, so peripheral myopathy. So literally within a
Oh,
period of 7 days, I lost 10
yeah.
kilograms, 10
Mm,
kilograms of muscle. Now, I don't know what that is converting to pounds. It must be 22 pounds or something,
yes.
from my arms and legs in 7 days. So I went from highly athletic. I can remember the worst episode was 2017 and 2011. They were the 2 worst out of the 3. And in 2017, I can remember doing a Filipino martial arts exhibition at a market in Melbourne, Australia, with one of my best guys, Guru Rob Bryant, who's a 4th Dan black belt. He trained in Queensland under Master Teresa, and he came down to Melbourne, and we just worked fantastic, drills together and demonstrations. And he was one of my best sparring buddies leading up to fights. And anyway, we did this market performance, and I knew I wasn't right. I knew I was sick, but I pulled it off. 7 days later, I couldn't walk to the fridge. I
Oh,
couldn't open the fridge door. So my arms and legs, literally the muscle stripped off them in a period of 7 days, 10 kilos lost. And I was bedridden for 7 weeks in each episode, or wheelchair bound. So, I had family members preparing my food. And yeah, so, that level of physical annihilation
mm,
for anyone, but when you're an
yes.
athlete and when you
The mental
express,
anxiety, the mental
yeah,
stress and anxiety as well.
Yeah. It's mental, it's emotional, it's
Yeah.
physical, it's annihilation on every possible level. I couldn't work, and
Mm.
I'm very highly motivated in my career. It was a total annihilation, and the rebuild isn't linear. Your
Mm.
first thing
Mm.
is, I need to learn to walk again. The biggest
Yeah.
thing in your day is having a shower. The
Yeah.
biggest part of your day is, and I needed my sister to wash my hair. So this level of annihilation brings you back. All you have is your soul,
Mm.
your spirit. And I
Mm.
love that word, in martial arts, the word usa, the indomitable spirit, and I think of Menon Kakouis and the strength that martial arts has given me. And I think that's
Mhm.
what pulled me through, got
Mm.
the mental stress of
Yeah.
losing the physical shell and being reduced to all that's left is that spirit. So that's
Mm.
that's what you've got. So you work with what you've got.
Yeah.
But yeah, the rebuild was big. I walked into that gym the first time after the 2017 episode, and I looked at that 20-kilogram barbell that I used to just fling around with 45 kilos overhead press, and I was like, I can't even lift that. So it was like, okay, well, let's go to 6 kilos. Let's see if we can start with that. So it
Mm.
was, and I could walk 50 meters. 50 meters was my limit. So it was just rebuild and, annihilation and rebuild. But now I'm completely cured. I had an amazing surgeon,
Wow.
2017. So I've now had 4 years of health, and I'm feeling amazing. The leg paralysis was a different issue, and that was a different style of rehab for recovery.
Hmm.
But yeah, you know, I've it's been a journey. People just look at your victories. People look at 10 world championship titles, eighth grade, black belt, blah blah blah. It's like, no, there's been a lot of struggle, and
Yeah.
those things might look shiny on the outside, but there's a whole convoluted journey, and it might sound intertwined when I talk about it,
Hmm.
because for me it wasn't just one or the other. They were both going on. It was, there's a
Yeah.
there's a whole lot going on under the surface with
Yeah.
all of us, right?
Exactly. I think yeah, it's one of those things where people basically see the glory that you have attained,
Yeah,
all the things that you have accomplished, but what people don't actually manage to see is what goes on beyond or behind all the
behind the scenes.
preparations, all the
Yeah.
challenges and everything. And um, I mean, I do find your journey extraordinary because having won so many competitions, having fought in different styles of martial arts and different platforms, and then having to go through all these
Yeah.
and managing to recover, and still you're basically doing what you love. You have the heart of a fighter, really. It's all here. And
Yeah,
this is the
thank
one
you.
that is basically making everything that work for you. So
Thank you. Yeah, it's taught me a lot, and I guess that it's helped me with my patients in the clinic. I'm an osteopath full time. It's helped me with my students. Yeah, it's taught me a lot, and I think there's still a lot there to unpack.
mm,
It's you can't have that many tumultuous experiences and kind of process it all in one hit. There's a whole lot of survival that goes on after each of those
yes,
episodes.
of course.
Got to get back to work, got to earn an income. I'm
Hmm.
self-employed.
Yeah.
Got to get the business running. Got to look after the patients, look after the
Hmm.
students. So it's yeah, we've all got stuff going on in our lives. I
Yeah.
think there's an
Everybody.
important thing, a message there for all of us is just,
Yeah.
you can't look at the surface of anybody. Just you've got to listen.
Yeah.
See
Exactly.
beyond and
Exactly.
connect.
Yeah. That is really important, and I think that is one of the magic if you really embrace what martial arts training is all about.
Mm.
That's what it is. That's what it is.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. You
So
look at
because
the old warriors. Like, I love the old stories, like Lapu Lapu on the island of Mactan fighting Ferdinand Magellan from Portugal. Like, the fighting spirit that would have come through. They'd never seen guns. They'd never seen, you know, that big loud noise that came out of a
mm,
gun, and they defended against that successfully the first time. I love that story, and that's fighting spirit. And I think we've all got that. You know, it's
We
just
do.
whether or not it's put to the test, whether or not you put yourself on the line, which is what stepping
Exactly.
in the ring is about. You know, perhaps it's not like a street fight.
Exactly.
It's not, you know, you've got a helmet. People will argue that that's not useful. Actually, there's a lot that comes from full contact fighting, you know,
Yeah.
and fighting
Yeah.
spirit coming through is a
Yeah.
big part of that. Reaction
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
performance under pressure,
Yeah.
keeping going while you're being
Yeah.
hit. Like there's so much that the martial arts has taught me that
Mm.
applies to my life, you know.
Mm. Mm. I think it might not be necessarily as exactly what how a street fight would happen, but I do believe getting sparring allows you to explore,
Yeah, it
allows
does.
you basically to learn quite a lot of things, and the things that you learn from sparring, the things you learn from competition, even the preparation is basically what will help you pull through when it comes to an actual situation. You might not end up fighting that person, okay, in an actual
Mm-mm.
fight, but all the other stuff like the awareness, the preparation, all those things will basically help you in the confidence as well. So yeah,
100%. Yeah,
yeah.
I think often of so Grandmaster Glenn Gardner's a guy in Jakarta, Indonesia, who trains some of the elite special forces and the police there, which we'll talk about the speed striking challenge later. But some of those guys participated in that, and you know he talks about that perhaps wearing the armor we're protected, sure, but there's an element that's replicating a real fight. You know how often do you get to completely let go and express yourself with full contact, you know,
Still,
striking at that level of speed
still.
and power,
Mm.
and receive blows and keep performing under pressure. And there's a realistic aspect to that. But of course, martial arts and Kako Doce Paris and all of martial arts is holistic. It doesn't just have one
Mm.
aspect. People watch our videos on social media and you've always got the, you know, the odd negative couch potato who's commenting and they might think that, well, there always is, right? And they might think that the thing that you're showing on a video is the only thing you do.
Yeah,
No, you know, we
that's
have an
true.
empty hand application,
Mm.
we have a screamer, we have a screedo,
Mm.
we have full contact stick fighting is one component. It's a matter of learning all of these things and bringing them all together to be a holistic practitioner in the martial
Exactly,
arts. And of course,
exactly.
real face-to-face street combat is a different thing again,
It's a different
you
thing.
know. But
It's a
you've got to
different thing.
develop all of these areas and bring
Mm.
them together,
Mm.
you know.
That's very true. Dean has a question. What made you
Sure.
want to compete initially?
Um, do you mean in full contact or screamer, I assume, Dean? Yeah. So I think it was just the environment. So again, I was competitive already, right? Athletics as a kid. I competed in motorcanas and hill climbs in MGs, which are a kind of English sports car. And I was in a boxing gym I mentioned earlier on in this
Mm.
interview in South Australia, and there was stick fighting going on. And the first time I looked at it, I was like, "Oh wow, I don't think I'd be able to do that." Literally, and then I gave it a go, and I just loved it. It's exciting. It's high adrenaline. It's so much fun, and I was just hooked. And as I think I mentioned, there was a competition in Los Angeles coming up, and it was a good opportunity to see how much I could improve in that period of time. And yeah, so I entered and kept competing after that. So it was really I've always felt competitive. I've always enjoyed athletic performance. I love martial arts, particularly love stick fighting. And I love double stick fighting as much as single stick fighting. It's such a beautiful expression. Again, maybe because I'm ambidextrous, I don't know, but I love just letting it out.
Ah, have you
it's
always
my
been
it's my dance.
ambidextrous?
Yeah,
You
so
always, really?
yeah, I was born that way. So, you know, double stick fighting for me feels
Yeah.
amazing. Single stick fighting feels amazing. I love it. I love getting hit. I love hitting. I think the whole thing is just so much the exchange of energy in a fight is perhaps what some people get from dancing or I don't know, but for me
Mm.
it's fighting.
Mm.
Yeah, it's fun.
Mm.
It's just fun.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
you
hope that
get the
answers it.
yeah. He has a second
He's
question.
got another question. I'm trying to read it.
Has your developed confidence and managing stress via sparring enabled you to handle other facets in your life better? If so,
Yeah,
how?
it's definitely, Dean. I would say, you know, I had this conversation with a patient last week. think it was Thursday, and I've got a 10-month-old Doberman puppy, and she had to go to the vet. So again, I'm going to tell you a convoluted story to answer your question. And I had patients all day back to back, and I had to get the pup to the vet, and I was worried about her. She'd swallowed a bone, a bit too big for her little tummy. And I don't know, I was just calm all day. I was calm in the traffic. I was calm the whole time this was going on. And one of the patients said to me, are you okay? Like, you seem extremely calm given what's going on. And that's my dog, right? I don't know, if you're not a dog lover, you might not understand that connection. But yeah, I don't know. It has definitely given me a sense of calm. When you're fighting full contact and you're exhausted, you might have had 7 fights that day. If it's the World Championships, if it's in the Philippines, you're in a basement under, a basketball stadium. There's no air conditioning in there, guys. You lose 2 kilos in your first fight from just sweat alone. You're in full body armor, or you're not, if it's Kulata. And, so you're under duress, you're fatigued, you're getting hit, you're under pressure to perform, but you're calm. And it's the calmness that's there in the eye of the storm that I learned from fighting, that I can cross apply to all aspects of my life. And that goes quite deep if we really want to unpack it. In 2020, I sadly lost 7 people close to me, and I was with 5 of them by their bedside in the lead up to their death, and with one of them as she passed away, my dear, dear auntie. And those are very deep emotional experiences. Again, I feel like martial arts has equipped me to have calm, inner calm. So is my profession, though. It's the 2 aspects marry beautifully. And so the answer is yes, Dean. But there's my long story.
Yeah, I think from a psychological point of view, when you go through like your competitions, basically you understand more how your body basically responds to the stress, how you develop anxiety, and how you basically manage that anxiety as well.
Yeah.
So
you do. Stepping into the ring takes courage. And I see people who criticize online stick fighting. It's like, have you tried it? Have you ever tried it? Give it a go. It's not everything. There's more to it. We should learn unarmed combat. We should learn grappling. We should learn all ranges and all aspects of martial art. But give stick fighting a go. If you're an anissador, because you will learn about yourself. It's the biggest mirror to self-learning.
Yeah.
It's not about your opponent. It's about how you react under pressure. It's about how you react under duress.
Yes.
It's how you are, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally. Do you redline? Do you perform illegal strikes when you're under pressure, or can you conduct yourself with integrity and still bring your best?
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, and also like how how you can be aware of your body, how you can be aware of your emotions and your mindset. If everything like this is your plan and it starts to fall apart, so how are you going to get back to it?
100%. And maybe don't have a plan as well. Like maybe yes, of course, people ask that question, do you have a strategy? Do you study your opponents? I like going in really fresh, and I like working with reaction and trusting my instincts. I've always liked working like that. Of course, it's good to have a bit of a look at your opponent and see how they work, but I don't fixate my mind. And I think it was Grandmaster Anthony Kleeman or Grandmaster Craig Hayward. I'll be quoting one of those guys here. Sorry, guys, I can't remember which one. That a screamer is more ephemeral than cerebral. And I really find that if you can surrender, if you can not hold on to that left brain logic, intellect, and actually surrender, it's a feel thing. It's kinesthetic. It's, it's not an intellectual thing, and neither is fighting. If you're on the street and you're accosted by 4 assailants, you're not thinking. If you're thinking, you're not performing.
You're responding. You're just responding.
In self-defense, you're responding, and you're relying on perhaps former programming or former emotional control within yourself, which might have come from the ring, but you're actually relying on your own skill base. And that's when you find out if it's there or not. Exactly.
Yeah, great point. Now, like for example, if you're if you're like, for example, competing in boxing and you only have one fight, you might have the time to be able to study your opponent. But if you're gonna have like
Exactly.
7, 8 fights in a day, you
Yeah.
don't have the luxury to do it. You
No.
just have to go.
No. Absolutely. Like, yeah, it's interesting. I'm just thinking as well, like in the international competitions, some of those fighters you've never seen, maybe you've
Yeah.
never heard of.
Mm.
There's been so many incredible fighters I've been up against in the ring, male and female, and each one of them has brought something different out of
Mm.
me,
Yeah.
something I didn't know I had because I had to rise to the occasion.
Mm.
And I couldn't have studied each of them because I didn't know who I'd be up against. You find
Yeah.
out on the
That's
day,
true. Yeah, that's true.
it's an international event. It's
Mm.
not like you said, in boxing, you might have, you're up against
You
this
only have one
opponent.
fight. Yeah, exactly.
You've got 3 months or 6 months prep and you know who your opponent is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So different things for different sports.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, you actually shared great points, and Dean agreed with it as well too. Okay, so um, anybody, do you have any more question to Master Andrea regarding competition? Okay. Okay, we'll get, if you have some, we'll get back to it later. So, um, I behind you is a picture of Manong Kakouis,
Yeah.
therapy Manong Kakouis. So, I think I would like to get into this part now with being a teacher, being a student of Manong Kakouis in Kakouis Doce Pares, and I mean you are basically an 8 dan in the Kakouis Doce Pares system. Okay,
Yeah.
so uh, what were your experiences and thoughts in training with Kakouis Doce Pares and Manong Kakouis?
So I've just found it such an enriching journey. I feel so privileged. I've had so much assistance from so many incredible grandmasters and masters around the world, students of Menon Kakouis. I think I named them yesterday. So there's 5 grandmasters that have come to my school in Melbourne, and I'd
Mm-hmm.
like to name them because they've helped my journey so much.
Okay.
So it's
Mm-hmm.
just so special. We've got Grandmaster Anthony Kleeman, we've got Grandmaster Craig Hayward, Grandmaster Ron Liu, San Jose, California, Grandmaster John Mack in the Philippines,
Yeah.
the headquarters coach,
Mm-hmm.
and Grandmaster Mike Barker, who's also in the Philippines. So those 5 guys influenced my journey directly in the last 10 years, particularly. And Menon Kakouis influenced my journey. As I was introduced to him, I mentioned earlier, in Adelaide at Grandmaster Vince Palumbo's gym. And I was really lucky. I've been able to travel to the Philippines every year, basically since about 2006, and train or compete or participate in seminars. And back when Menon Kakouis was traveling, he was traveling to the US for 6 months every year. He was coming to Australia for seminars and other places around the world as well. So Menon Kakouis he was such an incredible mentor. And I know a lot of you watching and who may end up watching this know Menon Kakouis, knew Menon Kakouis, I should say. His fighting ability was beyond a level that any of us are at right now. And I don't know if any of us will ever reach his level. His sense of humor as a human being, he was such a funny guy. He was always telling a joke or two, and his jokes were just like his sparring, right? They were from the cleanest, most innocent jokes to the most filthy jokes that I was embarrassed to hear. I can't believe you just said that. I'm blushing. But, he was so humble, and I mean that in the deepest sense of the word. He was extraordinary, but I think there's a quote in one of his books by one of his key students where they said that he was both extraordinary and ordinary, like an ascended master. And that's, it gives me goosebumps because it really describes him well. Yeah, I don't know if I've answered your question. I'm terrible, aren't I?
No.
Menon Kakouis, my influences were from Menon Kakouis directly, but also from his students who are grandmasters, who I've just named earlier, and going to the Philippines. And I remember in the early days when Menon Kakouis' legs were still very strong. And one of the most special memories I have is that after every tournament or every main event, we'd have a party at his house. So I don't know if you've trained in the Philippines at Menon Kakouis' residence, you know that he has a dojo at the side of the house. And we'd have parties, and his children are also incredibly talented in music. You know, they play piano, they sing. Menon Kakouis had a beautiful singing voice. So we'd have karaoke and dance. And when Menon Kakouis' legs were strong, I would dance with him. And, you know, that was so special. He was like a grandfather figure to me. He was an incredible martial arts mentor, but he was also like a grandfather. And you know, his own family and his own grandchildren, everyone adores him. He was such a beautiful gift to us. And I think his legacy will live on for an eternity, because, you know, we're all still trying to catch up with his level of understanding and his expression of that.
Yeah. I think, like yourself, talking to Grandmaster Anton, who is my close friend here in the UK, and he's also like a Capoy Doce Pares, you basically have the same view or experience with Manong Kako. So that basically just shows how extraordinary the person is. So
yeah, he's just, you know, you would go to his house and he would invite you inside, and I can remember spending my birthday there in 2013, and Menon Kakouis' legs were not so strong at this point, but he would walk out with the walking frame or the stick, but then he would spar and he would throw Grandmaster John all over the dojo, you know, and then he would sit down and we'd have bananas and snack together, and he would spar with me at the table, sitting down, and his hands felt invisible. I don't know how to explain that, but his energy was so soft. He was so subtle. He knew what you were doing before you knew yourself. So he could almost lure you into it's like chess, right? When you start doing controlled sparring, it's like, although again, I don't believe there's much thinking involved when you get to that level, it's automatic, but you're feeling for fulcrums and leverage, and you're feeling for the opponent's weakness, or you're identifying where you can create a disarm or a throw. Menon Kakouis was way ahead of all of us. He could trap you, he could entice you into a certain move before you knew where you were, and then before you know it, you're on the ground. And so we had this beautiful sparring. It was my birthday, and I remember sitting down and he said, come and have a snack. But then we crossed sticks at the table. And again, those invisible hands, the subtlety. And I try to teach that to my students. It's like, you need to learn to be soft. Everyone comes into a martial arts school and they want to hit hard.
Yeah.
And, you know, they think that's what it's about. And there's levels of ego and insecurity. And I understand all of that at the beginning. But when you melt that away, and you actually allow yourself to learn softness, that's when you're lethal. That's when you can disarm. That's when you can outsmart your opponent.
Completely agree. Completely agree. Yes. Yeah. Yes, because what people don't realize is when you try to disarm somebody and you attack it in a very hard way, you actually emit electrical impulses that the other person can emit.
100%.
So it makes the person actually hold his stick tighter, and it makes it harder for you to disarm it. So you have to be able to approach it in a way that it has to have like a soft energy in it. Yeah.
Beautifully said, Guru Tom. I love it. And exactly, like when you use your intention from your mind too much, you emit an electric charge. Everything's energy, right?
Yeah.
And your opponent will feel that tighten up, as you just described so perfectly. But when you're soft, when you learn the yin with the yang, you can be sneaky. You can be really sneaky.
Yes, exactly.
And you can do things that they didn't even see coming. And you know, I think my understanding of that is very amateur compared to Menon Kakouis. I think I've got a big journey to walk. And you know,
we all do.
we've got so much more learning, but yeah, my students are pushing my level at the moment. There's a select few of them that we train in a garage, and I love it. I love giving away everything I know, and then the guys get to push my level, and yeah, it's really fun.
I mean, ever since there's always there is always like this discussion about why are the like the likes of Manong Kakouis really different from the grandmasters now or the newer generation, because they lived it, they it's what they breathe every day. So it wasn't just a hobby for them, it's like their way of life. Mhm.
Absolutely. Menon Kakouis is so inspiring in that way. You know, he was teaching at a high school, and then he was a second lieutenant in the military when the Japanese invaded the
Mhm.
Philippines. He was serving on the side of the US, in the US forces in the Far East, and so a second lieutenant in the military. He then went on to teach as combat intelligence officer in the University of Visayas, also in the Department of Criminology. So he was living and breathing this stuff. And
Mm.
he also, as a guerrilla fighter after the war
Mm.
had ended, he
Yeah.
survived 3 years in the Filipino jungle,
Mm.
empty-handed combat. That's the
Mm.
level of his pungamot. You know, I don't think we can even really conceive the level of skill required to survive 3 years unarmed in a
Mm.
jungle in the
Mm.
Philippines. You know,
Yeah.
and I had some beautiful conversations with Menon Kakouis. My very last meeting with him, which, you know, there's a lot. We laughed for 2 hours solid, but it's also sad because it was just before he
Mm.
passed. I was in the hospital with him in the Philippines. It was it was 2016, and I was over there, and actually it was 2015 November, and he passed in February 2016. But I was with him in the hospital for a couple of hours, and you know, he tells so many funny stories. So he was telling me about some of the times in the jungle and what he had to eat to survive. And, you know, because we were speaking about eating dog in the Philippines, and he said to me, "I've got one better than that." And you know, he spoke about what they had to eat in the jungle. They ate cat at one point, and we were laughing. We were laughing about this, you know, but that's survival. And
That's survival, yes.
but yeah, he was living and breathing. He had 100
Yeah.
fights. They're called death matches,
Mm-hmm.
which some people misunderstand and think that means they killed each other. No, but they signed a waiver, which meant that
Yeah.
if they did lose their life, their families
Yeah.
wouldn't then go after
Yeah.
some form of revenge, whether it was
Yeah.
monetary or otherwise.
Yeah.
He
Which is
won over
common.
100. Yeah,
Which
yeah,
is
exactly.
common then.
Yeah, but Menon Kakouis won over 100 of these unarmed combat bouts, you know, and each one was over in under 13 seconds or something like that. And it was the true mixed martial art. You know,
Mm-hmm.
he was probably one of the world's first true mixed martial artists, with his very extensive background in boxing, wrestling, shorin karate, aikido, judo,
Mm-hmm.
and then weapons and an empty hand. So, yeah, as a mentor, um, I just feel so privileged that I've had time with him, and quality time with some of his top students. I've been really lucky. I think I said that yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when I talk about that, it's just, you know, I'm nothing without these people who have influenced my path, and
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be able to give to my students the way that I can now
Mm-hmm.
without their influence on me. And we're all growing all the time, but yeah, Menon Kakouis is just incredible mentor and
Yeah.
person.
I can see it a deep connection between the two of you, as him as your mentor, and even like referring Manong Kakouis as like a grandfather figure and everything. So you
Yeah.
had, it wasn't just like, okay, we train today and then that's it.
No.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
really nice.
Amazing human being.
Yeah,
Mm.
and I'm glad that you are. I'm also glad that basically you are continuing his legacy. Okay,
Mm.
with your with teaching there in Australia, and coaching other fighters, Screamer
Yeah.
fighters as well. So
I feel like
the,
it's a big privilege to do that. Yeah.
yeah, definitely, it's one of the things that we can offer to our teachers.
Yeah. We've got to pass it on, you know, we
Yes,
have to.
exactly. Yeah.
And it's that thing, you know, you can always look at yourself and think, you know, am I good enough? Like, look at Menon Kakouis. I don't have what he has, but we've got to keep walking our path.
Yeah.
And I think there's
Agree.
some interesting discussions on the FMA page, actually, which I won't, this is a separate conversation I won't go into, but there's those conversations about using titles, not using titles. Is it ego? Is it not? I think when you come from a place of non-duality and you can be completely neutral, every style is different. It's okay if you don't want to use a title. It's okay if you do. It doesn't matter. It doesn't make one, you could not use a title and have a big inflated ego, and you could use a title and have no ego. It doesn't, it's not about that. And our lineage is, if you look at the interpretation of the word sensei, it just means somebody who's walked a few paces along the path further than you. And for me, it keeps me humble. So I look at Supreme Grandmaster Kakouis Canete and think, wow, I've got a lot of walking to do on my journey. But right now I know that I can share what I have got with my students, and I'll keep growing.
Yeah, that's very true. And I think what is more important is your sincerity as well when you do this as a martial artist and as somebody who's continuing the legacy of Menon Kakouis. So, yeah. Right. Okay. So, do you run your own school there in Australia?
Yes, I do. So, so I started teaching in Spain. I relocated because I'm going to go back again. Here we go, answering questions.
Nice.
I relocated to Spain because I was accepted into a study course in Switzerland, which ran for 3 years. And then from Spain, I sent a letter to Menon Kakouis. I used to send letters all the time and videos of what I was doing with my students, and call him on the telephone. We'd have a good chat. And I asked permission to teach in Melbourne, Australia, and he granted that. And so when I came back to Melbourne, 2011, I set up, firstly I was unwell. I had to relearn to walk, but I set up my own school in 2012, still with a bit of a pirate leg, a bit of a limp. And sorry, you can hear my dog in the background.
Yes.
And so she no longer got a puppy bark. And
agreeing with you.
And so, Menon Kakouis authorized me to teach in Melbourne. I started training when I still had the leg paralysis, just with one guy in a park. He was fantastic. And every week I'd limp in and we'd train together, and I'd limp out and he'd carry my sticks for me. And then I opened the school officially in 2012. Grandmaster Anthony Kleeman came from Los Angeles for a seminar. So that was a nice opening. And then, as I said, many grandmasters have come since to teach at my school. And I've also run many events, fundraisers for the Philippines, different workshops and seminars. And it's been really rewarding. It's been great running the club. And the students are so dedicated. And I think one of the beautiful things I'm seeing is I'm getting a lot of Filipino students who come to me and they want to connect to their roots and their culture. And it's really beautiful, and they're so enthusiastic, and they're so easy to teach. And it's really, I feel really honored, right? Like, I'm not Filipino in my blood, and I've got this big responsibility of passing on Menon Kakouis' art. And I wish I was Filipino, but I can't change that. And so, it's just beautiful getting to teach these students who are so enthusiastic. And we talk about the history, we talk about the culture, and we don't just do the martial art. I always refer back to Menon Kakouis and the stories I learnt. So it's fun.
Wow, that's good. And you also coach, right? Is the coaching that you do part of the school?
Grandmaster Anthony's just jumped on. I'm sorry. I'm just
okay, no worries.
No, but please, could you repeat that?
So sorry. Besides teaching, are we having this problem again with the connection? No. Right, so besides the teaching, you because you mentioned in your biography that you're coaching Screamer fighters. Is this also in your school? Okay.
Yes, so in my school, most of the main classes are directed at white belts and brown belts. So it's syllabus training, and it's quite structured because they need a foundation. They need a fundamental foundation. I also have another group that I train privately in a garage. Those guys are more interested in unarmed combat, full contact fighting, and just getting into some realistic situations where things are not pre-programmed. And I enjoy that a lot. Again, that's where my level gets pushed. We practice some pangamot, empty hand application, takedowns, escrito, full contact with very little armor, if any, usually just a helmet and a breast guard, or a helmet and a groin guard, rat and cane stick. Sometimes higut paranot, so we're tying each other together with a rope so the opponent can't get away. So the garage is where things get real. And I'm really grateful to those guys. It's been a real shame with the pandemic, because I run a health clinic, and I've had to have very strict protocol. I know that not all martial artists are adhering to this protocol, and that's, if they can do it a different way, I respect other people's choices, but I run a health clinic. So we've had little hands-on in the last 2 years. We've done a lot over Zoom, and that's been a real shame. But those guys that have trained in the garage with me will be getting back into it really soon. We had one of my best students who's trained for 8 years, did his black belt in February, and we had some great sessions, empty-handed, etc.
Nice. Yeah, I think everybody went through this stage because of the pandemic. Even those who don't like teaching online started teaching online as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, look, I wrote an article about it. It's really ironic, right? Like 2018, I think it was, I wrote this article about you can't learn martial arts online. And I wrote this, and I think Jason Ward in Canada, he might be publishing that shortly, I'm not sure. But it was really ironic, because all of a sudden the pandemic hits, right? And it's like, okay, if we don't go virtual, we don't train. So let's do it. We have to adapt. We have to be resilient. We have to adapt and overcome and move with the times. And even if it's not the same, we get something out of it. You know,
exactly.
In online training, they lost distance control. They lost timing. They lost the sense of leverage and fulcrums. But they still kept their striking abilities up. They still remembered some of the blocking and
exactly. I mean, at least they're not missing out with their skill sets as well. But I completely agree with you. Online training won't be a complete martial arts training, but at least there's something. Rather than nothing. Okay. And Anthony asked something. What direction do you see your training as taking in the future?
So, hi, Grandmaster Anthony. So to answer,
Anthony, sorry.
no, that's okay. I use their titles again because they're all ahead of the path than me, and I look up to that, and I'm growing, and it keeps me humble. My training specifically, because I think your question is, what direction do you see your training as taking in the future?
Yeah.
I think really there's two aspects to the answer to that question, and one is I really feel a deep honor teaching my students. I want to pass on as much as I can. I want to help them to grow. I want to help them to achieve their goals. And they've all got different goals. Some of them want to do their black belt. Some of them just want to fight. Some of them want to learn unarmed combat and street defense. I want to do the best I can to fulfill my role as a teacher and pass on as much knowledge as I possibly can in whichever way that takes shape. You know, I also teach self-defense to girls. So there's different aspects to that. I also want my own training to deepen. I'd like to focus a lot more on unarmed combat and escrito. I love escrito, which is the art developed by Menon Kakouis, and he made it public in 1948, a combination of eskrima, judo, with elements of jiu-jitsu and aikido. I love the art of escrito, and we've had the privilege here in Melbourne. My group have presented at the Queen Victoria Market, which is the biggest market in Melbourne, for the Filipino cultural and other Asian cultural festivals. We've presented. Yeah, it's been so beautiful. So we've had that beautiful role of actually doing an exhibition, and my students have been involved. And I love sharing this art. I love making it known in the community that it's not just a beautiful martial art, but it's lethal. It's effective. It works. You know.
That's really nice. You've mentioned something about a women's, I think a women's group. But anyway, in your biography, you're basically one of the co-founder of the Women Fight Back Australia.
Yeah. So
would you yes, please. Yes, please.
So 2018 in Melbourne, Australia, we had a lot of brutal murders and rapes and murders of women in Australia, and they were random attacks. They were happening on trams. They were happening in parklands after hours, during the day. And a friend of mine who is a power lifter, Alyssa Jewell, contacted me, and I'd been feeling the same sentiment the same morning. It was ironic. She called out of the blue. We weren't regularly chatting or anything. We'd just worked at the same gym previously. And she asked me if I'd consider teaching a group of women. And she offered to pay me. And I said, you know what? I want to do this and I don't want to be paid. I've been feeling very strongly about this. And so we got together as a really formidable team, Alyssa and myself. And I think we had ABC News covering us at our first event, which we actually did at Princess Park, which was the location of the attack and murder of a woman, a comedian, a young Melbourne comedian. So we did our first free women's self-defense there, and the ABC News came to cover it. And it was really empowering. We saw these women who, had no training whatsoever in martial arts or fighting or anything else, who were scared. Women were scared. They were talking about it. They were coming into the clinic talking about it. And we just wanted to give them some street effective, useful techniques they could pull off, and hopefully escape a situation. And there's obviously a whole philosophy behind effective street combat. It has to be simple. It has to be direct. It has to work for someone who's smaller and not physically endowed with, power or strength. So, we're talking about eye gouging. We're talking about kicks to the groin. We're talking about whatever works to get you out of that situation and get you safe.
Exactly.
So that was Women Fight Back, and we did it for pre-pandemic. We just kept delivering workshops in different places around Melbourne, gyms, parklands. It was so awesome. I was so lucky. 6 of my male students and one of the karate instructors at the school came along to help. So I could present the women with guys who were much bigger than them, who could do a mock attack, and the women had to defend against it. So they not only had the psychological challenge of a guy they didn't know, they knew it was a pre-planned attack, but a guy that they didn't know, they'd never met, bigger than them, putting a choke on them, putting a wrist grab, putting a bear hug, putting them on the ground, and they needed to get out of that situation. So again, teamwork, collaboration. I couldn't have done this without my students, and they really helped to make it happen. But I went on to deliver that program to Year 7 girls, which is the first year of high school in Australia.
All right.
I had some help from Grandmaster Anthony Kleeman. So while you're here, GMAC, I want to say thank you for some of your assistance with. I presented some slides just to give the girls some different way of thinking.
Yeah.
It's not natural to think that you have to watch your back all the time for most people.
I know. Especially these days.
Yeah, no, they're looking at their phones and they're listening to music.
That's true.
They're not aware. Number one rule of self-defense is awareness, right?
Awareness. So, exactly that. Yeah. Okay. So, during the pandemic, did you do like online teaching as well with that?
Yeah. So during the pandemic, not with the self-defense.
Yeah, not with the self-defense.
We stopped that because that was a really hands-on program.
Okay, all right.
During the pandemic, I taught my students over Zoom.
All right, okay.
Filipino martial arts.
Okay,
yeah.
All right. And then you got your future projects with the Women Fight Back.
Yeah, definitely. So I'd like to get back into the schools for that, and also just offering some workshops locally. We had some sponsorship for that event, and I feel like it's an important thing to deliver.
Yeah, I mean, if you got like any materials that you want to share or any announcement that you want to share, feel free to post it in FMA discussion, and we'll be more than happy to share it to everybody.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay. You've got sometimes you did a project for the Kakouis Doce Pares headquarters, and that is the speed striking challenge.
Yeah.
I think I saw that happening.
Yeah.
So what was it about?
So speed striking challenge was a fun event, and Grandmaster John Mack and I created that event at the beginning of the pandemic. So it was around sort of April, May 2020. And we knew that this thing was here, you know, not just for 1 or 2 weeks, that this pandemic was going to be affecting us worldwide for quite some time. And, you know, I was looking around and people were not just affected financially or, you know, they were physically isolated. They were emotionally affected. They were psychologically challenged. People were getting down. We couldn't travel. I had a trip planned to train in the Philippines with Grandmaster John in June 2020, which of course was cancelled. And that's his income, you know, that Grandmaster John travels the world, or people travel to him, as do other Filipino grandmasters like Grandmaster Chuck Canete. They deliver the martial arts, and that's their income and their livelihood, and that's how they support their families. And you know, that was being deprived, and we didn't instantly have virtual platforms to quickly transition to and get an audience. So I spoke to Grandmaster John and I said, you know what, let's make this fun competition, and let's involve people. We'll lift the morale of the people. We'll raise some money, and so we sold tickets and very cheaply, and it was great. I think the first event, GM John and I participated in the first 2 events. So we had a 30-second challenge. You just had to hit the bag or the tires, deliver as many strikes as you could in either 30 seconds or 10 seconds. You got 3 rounds, and the best event, your best event was measured. And it wasn't about the competition. It was about bringing people together. It was about delivering some entertainment and getting people to train when they might be sitting at home on their computer working and stressed, or not working because they didn't have a job anymore. I think we raised around $1,000 US the first time, and that helped about 8 families in the Philippines. And you know, it was really fun. Grandmaster John actually had a shoulder injury for that comp, so I feel like I had a bit of an unfair advantage. I think without that injury, he you know, but he's so humble. And again, it wasn't about who won. It was about let's have some fun. Let's raise some money, involve people. And it went on from there. We involved many countries. We had participants from Mexico. We had participants from the Philippines, from Indonesia. We had some of the Special Armed Forces joining us for the special celebration of Menon Kakouis' 101st birthday event. Yeah, so it was good. It was a fundraiser, and it was just keeping people's skills up when they were isolated in their homes, which, you know, in Melbourne, Australia, we had more than 270 days of being locked in our homes. And I know this has become political. I know that this is polarized society, and I don't want to go into that. You know, some of us, we adhere to the rules because there's massive fines, and we don't want to put people's health at risk. So
yeah, exactly. Wow, that was a brilliant idea. Yeah, we got a comment there. Andrea, good interview. Love the barking sound track.
I think Grandmaster Anthony's teasing me because my dog has made herself known. My apologies.
I know. No. It was a lovely sound. Right. Well, I don't know, guys. Have you got any questions still for Andrea? Because I think we've covered almost everything now. Yeah. And
thank you so much for having me, Guru Tom, and Dean, for organising this. Salamat po.
I know.
Thank you so much.
It's as I said, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure having you as a guest, and it's a pleasure actually being the one to interview you.
Thank you. It's been wonderful. Just a very short time on getting to know you over the platform. I hope we get to meet in person and train.
Hopefully, yes. Hopefully. Hopefully.
And thanks to everyone who watched. I look forward to seeing some of the other interviews and meeting other people on this platform.
Yeah,
I just want to say I really love the FMA discussion, the mission statement. You know, it's really what you're doing, guys, is really good. You know, promoting different martial, different methods of arnis and different practitioners, and you know, making it more about the art and preserving the history and helping the future, creating a future. It's really good. Thank you so much.
Hats off to Dean. He was the one who.
Yeah, totally.
I just only got involved recently.
Oh, it's so lovely to meet you. Thank you.
Yeah, and you too. So cool. I think this is a question that we normally ask our guests as the last question in the interview. What message can you give to the FMA community?
I think just continuing with the concepts, the foundation of respect and integrity and courage and benevolence, like just being kind to each other, listening, keeping anything on an online forum positive and about growth and development, and just helping anyone who's on their journey to continue that path and pursue their dreams and, preserve the Filipino martial arts, preserve the I guess the original concept of it, which is about an effective delivery of a fighting system, right? And fighting art. But I think we can only do that. I think we can only deliver to the future when we influence the present moment. And I think a big part of that is showing respect to our peers and holding integrity in our words and our conduct and obviously our actions, but our intention has to be behind all of that. Just, everyone has something to offer. Every style has something beneficial about it. And we can only learn from each other. So I think it was, I'm so sorry because I've forgotten the name of the gentleman early on, but it was Chris who said martial arts not caring about color, creed or gender. So it's a follow on from that. I think I'm just about, harmonizing between groups and continuing to learn and deliver, because in the future we want people to be loving this art and following on and teaching as we are now. So I think the less divisiveness, the better. Unification and respect. It all comes back to those values of martial arts.
Yeah.
The Bushido.
Lovely message. Maraming salamat.
Salamat po.
Maraming salamat. Yeah, it's a very lovely and timely message as well. Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
So, hey guys, do you still have any more questions from Master Andrea? Yeah, Hyle said, very nice hearing the stories.
Thank you.
And Grandmaster Anthony said, congrats on presenting a strong and vital image for Screama and for women in Screama. I completely agree, 100%.
Cool, guys. Thanks so much.
So I think on that note, if there's no more questions, once again, I would like to thank you for being our guest, and hopefully we can bring you again at some point, maybe do some demo or something.
I'd love that.
We'll do that one time. Yes. Yeah, we can basically like you can take it from like classical Doce Pares stuff or do some self-defense or something. It's up to you.
It sounds like fun. That sounds great. Thank you so much.
We'll do it.
Awesome.
I think the viewers love demos.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
We could put some action on these channels. That'd be really fun.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh yeah, Teresa said, great interview, Master Andrea. And Hayat said, inspirational woman.
Thanks, Master Teresa. I want to say thank you to you. You're one of my early inspirations. So thanks heaps. And thanks to everyone.
Yeah, thank you everyone for tuning in tonight. Thank you for the comments, for the great comments. And we do hope that you enjoyed this interview with Master Andrea. So on that note, this is Guru Tom Pena, and good morning. Enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe.
Thank you so much. See you guys.